Today's guest is a new friend of mine I am honored to sit down with. He holds a Master's of Arts in Pastoral Counseling. He is president of Pillars Counseling, host of Pillars Podcast, a father, a pastor, a counselor, an advocate for men, and offers the youth and families faith-based healing. We were honored to be able to sit down with him and pick his brain. He is none other than Harry Robinson. Op Talks. Who are you? What do you come from, and why should people listen to you?
I'm Harry Robinson.
Robinson.
So you know, I'm a pastoral counselor, and
Okay.
I work for an organization called Pillars Counseling. And Pillars Counseling really provides counseling for families and young men especially, and that's why I was so excited to come and talk with you, because you're right in the heart of the men who I like to talk to and kind of mentor and walk alongside of them, especially when they're very, very excited about the things that they do
I'm excited.
in new life. Why should people listen? Well, I always have a doubt, should people really even listen to me?
I know,
like,
right?
oh my gosh, why should? But I think we all, we have a work and we have certain things that happen in our life. And if we're intentional and living through it and walking in a way that brings fruitfulness through the experiences that we have, that we should have a story and a message to tell that people should be able to listen. And so I think in my life, for a long time in my life, I've cared for people. Ever since high school, I cared for people.
Where did that start from?
Well, my parents were very caring for people. We always brought people in. I learned that from them. I remember when I was a kid, probably in high school, definitely high school, there's a homeless guy that I ran into, got to talking to him. He didn't have a place to stay that night, and I brought him home. And
You brought a homeless guy home with you?
I brought him home. And
Where did you live?
I lived in Barstow at the time.
Okay.
It's probably a lot of transient people came through there, but I brought him home, and you would think, well, how would you do? Well, that was very much what my parents demonstrated, is caring for people. And we lived near Victorville, had an Air Force base there. And so in the church that we worked with, my dad was one of the ministers there in the church. We often brought these people in that were from the military and cared for them, made dinner for them and stuff. So I just assumed I could bring people in. So I really did learn to care for people through my family. And I've been caring for people ever since.
Did your parents ever divorce, or did they stay together?
No, my parents are together, yeah.
Okay.
They were together until my father died.
Okay. Sorry for your loss. My parents are together too, and I always felt, I guess in my age, it feels a little bit weird having my parents together, because I'll talk to anybody and I'll be like, yeah, I know my parents are together, and they're like, God, F you, because I feel odd, because so many people are divorcing, so many people are splitting up and after marriage. So that's cool that they were together and they showed you principles like that.
Yeah, that's true. In college, when usually the first thing in the psychology class that someone asks, they ask the students to introduce themselves. One of the things they discovered is that divorce is such an impacting thing that when they describe themselves in the first introduction, the first thing they mention is whether their parents have divorced.
Really?
My parents are divorced, and that's so much of a key thing in the life of young people as they're growing up.
Why do you think that is?
Because it's earth-shattering.
Yeah.
When you think about being raised in a family, mom and dad, that's a structure in which is stability. And when that changes, it literally is like an earthquake. And if you've never been in an earthquake, and you walk along the earth and the earth stays solid. But when the earth that you walked on for all this time shakes, that's a pretty dramatic thing.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about all the pain and suffering that you experience, and to have that happen in 10 to the 15-year-old. I mean, I know some people, my friends, partially think that they're responsible for their parents' divorce. I'd do this, or that maybe they had me too late in life.
Yeah, that could be typical.
Yeah, and then they're left with this burden, oh my God, I'm the problem. I'm not the solution. Many times I think that's normal. Sometimes being oh, I'm causing conflict in my parents' relationship. But to ultimately have them split up after that and then spend Christmases separate and all that stuff, I feel that just kills. I mean, I was lucky to have one Christmas and one Thanksgiving and not like a bunch of like weird family dynamics you gotta like, massage through to like. It was just.
Well, that's not God's intention. God's intention is the man being the foundation of the family, and the family being the fabric of the society.
Okay.
And where the man who is not the foundation doesn't understand his God-given role, and bringing together a family that weaves together a very solid structure for society, men and the world are going to have a really difficult time.
When did you get saved? When would you
Well,
say?
I grew up in the church all my life, and the time that I would really say that I got saved was probably about 10 years old.
10
It's
years
when
old.
I really, at 10 years old, just had a real encounter with God.
What did that awakening look like?
I just remember feeling as though I met God. That it was not that I just understood the plan of salvation, that Jesus came and died for our sins and I was a sinner, and that he wanted to save me, and if I believed in him, he would by his Spirit come and live in me and transform my life. I believed it, but the important thing was that he came into me and transformed my life, and I experienced that. It's when I experience people who have said the sinner's prayer, and they just kind of said the sinner's prayer and kind of move on from that, I'm part of the club. There's a delineation between believing who the person of God is, Jesus, the man of God, and having him come and transform your life. You never go back. It's not.
Who is Jesus? Because I read through the Bible, and I read through, and I see it as all like, okay, I think there's two types of people who proclaim to be Christian. I think there's the type of person that says, this is a test, and I'm going to put my final answer down. I'm Christian, and maybe when I get up to those pearly gates, I'll be saved. And then there's the type of person who exponentially is growing and trying to figure out all the things God isn't to make an outline of who he is, and then trying to love that. And if you can find out who, like, the devil knows who God is, but then also trying to love him. And so my question to you is, who is God?
You said the first time, who is Jesus? And Jesus is God's Son, God the Father. And Jesus is his Son who came down in earthly form. And in his physical body, he came down and died. But Jesus didn't come. Jesus was always with the Father. He's eternal.
John 1:1.
He's eternal, always there. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word became flesh. With God and came flesh, yes. So he is the first begotten, which became the man who walked with us on earth. So he's a real person. One day we're going to see him face to face.
Okay, my question to you is, how can it be three in one?
Because that's what the Word of God says. I don't think we are able to comprehend it in a way that we can represent it, because he's God. If we could do that, we'd probably be less God than he really is. But the truth of the Word is, and we go understanding the revelation of God himself, he revealed himself as the Father.
Yes.
The eternal being, and he came down. But he said right from the beginning, let us make man in our own image. And we sometimes neglect the fact that the Holy Spirit was also there. God spoke the word. God said what he wanted to happen. Jesus spoke the word, created it, and the Spirit of God became was the power that put all of this together in a way that is transforming. And the Spirit of God still is very much involved in every aspect of humanity, Christianity, the development of the world. He's powerful, and he's there. And that's why Jesus said when he leaves, he's going to send his Spirit. And his Spirit is going to do more, is capable of doing and being more places than Jesus.
The Spirit plays a huge factor. And I think for most atheists, non-believers, they describe what God works in as luck, something that happens. And so what I like to ask to believers and non-believers, I just kind of switch out the two. Where would you be without the Spirit, or God working in your life, or
we
to an atheist?
wouldn't have life. The
Yeah.
Spirit is what brings life. He breathes life. He's the life in that goes away. It's done. We're gone.
I think it looks more like, what do I deserve? Like, if luck wasn't at play or somebody wasn't orchestrating everything, like, what would I deserve? And I know, because of my sins and my problems and the things that I've chosen over, I mean, I feel like before I became Christian, I tried everything else besides God. You know, I would run to everything else. I would run to every other solution. And then once I figured out, like, oh, this is the solution, this is the only solution, because it's, if I handed you some, like, little trinket, right, or like some little piece of like a tool, but I didn't tell you what it was made for, and like you're sitting there like looking at it like, okay, you'd probably want to go discuss with the person who made it what it's for.
Absolutely. Well, the other thing too is when you search for things in this life to fulfill, the tendency is we search for those things that fulfill the flesh.
Yes.
But what we're really looking for is things that satisfy the soul. And we seek after fleshly things thinking it will satisfy the soul, and it's only short, temporarily,
Okay.
a lived out thing. But the thing that satisfies the soul and the real thing is God himself, his very presence. He created us to be in relationship with him, to know him. When he created Adam and he put him in a garden to be able to spend time with him. It was like the intersection between heaven, the spiritual place where God was, and earth. Eden was that place.
Yes.
And God developed Adam to be able to learn to relate to God. So constantly what we are aiming at is a deep, close connection with the God who made us.
Okay. So God made Adam in such a way to create like change, and like Adam had a purpose. Like,
Absolutely, he had a purpose.
Eve
God
had a
made
purpose.
him for that.
You know, Abraham, Jesus, everything has a purpose. So like looking at it like you're this tool or, item or whatever, what did God make you for? I don't know if I have that answer for myself, but maybe you have some more wisdom on that.
We can just go to the very fact that he made us for. He made us a man. If he made you a man, he made me a man, then he has a purpose that is already innate in us in regards to how we would engage in the world. And a man is very much a foundation. God didn't make Eve first. He made man first. And he made man for expressed image to cultivate and to care for his creation. So our natural God-given role is to take care and cultivate this world that we live in. It's to bring fruitfulness. One of the things that I pay attention a lot often with young men to say, we are, as men, made to leave fruit, to make fruit, to produce fruit, that whenever we leave the place, there should be light and life that is in our wake.
So we're supposed to bear fruit just like how Jesus says, like, I'm the true vine, because we're supposed to be Christ-like, and Jesus bore incredible fruits, I mean, he changed like our whole calendar system's based off of the guy. That's what I thought was weird. I was like, we're all basing it off, because I wasn't always a believer, and so I was like, who is this guy that we made the whole calendar off of,
It's pretty mighty.
I don't know specifically. I'm at a weird spot because I'm so young and I have so much time. Or I think I have so much time.
Yeah, I know. When you're young, you think, oh man, I have my whole life ahead of me.
Yeah.
And then you get old and you think, where did all that life ahead of me go?
Yeah, I just don't know specifically. Like, I think right now what I would be made for in this moment is to, like, have a voice, try to help my people. I guess there's like in psychology, what is this feeling? Maybe you don't know it, maybe you do. What is this feeling of community, and why do humans value it so much?
Well, he made us for community. That's why that's the very beginning. He made Adam, and then he gave Adam Eve, and he told them to be fruitful and multiply. And God didn't make us to be individual. He made us so that we would commune with him. And communing with him is all about community, bringing us together. He wants to share the vastness of his very presence with all who he's created, who he's called from the very foundation of the world. So community is a huge part of the whole plan of God. He didn't just create the world and go, oh, I think I'll do. He had. It's like you said your dad is a contractor, right?
Yes.
He doesn't start building unless he already knows what he's going to build.
Yeah.
And he knows where he's going to place things and what's going to be there. And that's kind of like how God designed it. He knew exactly what he wanted, and he began to develop it.
Okay, that makes sense. I've always had a hard time. I've always been big in community. I want to be around people all the time.
I agree. I love people, and I love being in community because it matters. You were. I'm sorry to interrupt here and go to what I think you were talking about. You were mentioning what your purpose and why you're here and what you want to do.
Oh.
And one of the things that I think that is very intrinsic about us to paying attention to when we think about our purpose and why we want to be here, it always has to be, as a believer, glorifying God. All of the things that I have, all the gifts He's given me, in doing that, how do I let Him be known? And one of the examples I think about is John. The Bible says that there is no one born of a woman greater than John, right? And then he turns around and says, but for the least in the kingdom of heaven, they're greater than John. Well, wait a minute. How do you make that transformation? And the thought that I had was, John was the one man who proclaimed the coming of Jesus. I mean, that was a unique role. No, Jesus had never come. God in flesh had never arrived on the earth. And here's this crazy-looking guy eating wild honey and locusts, and dressed like a madman, a wild man. And he's the one proclaiming Jesus is coming. That was a great role as a heralder of the coming king.
That's so crazy. God chose him to announce the arrival. Because you would, like, if I were to show up at the Met Gala, I'd want a nice red carpet. I wouldn't want
exactly
a bunch of bees and
But when you're somebody that great, your very personhood exceeds anything else. Is just even if you had the best thing, it's still inadequate for the level of who he was or who he is. So you got the John proclaiming Jesus is coming, but the ones that are least in the kingdom of heaven, do you know what they're proclaiming? They're proclaiming the second coming of the reigning king.
Okay.
And anything that we have as a purpose in our life, in my kind of estimate, is that we get to herald the coming of the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords.
Define herald for anybody who
herald, become the one who, hello, hey, hear ye, here cometh the King.
Yeah, that guy.
He's the one who proclaims the coming of the King.
The hype man.
He's the hype man. Yeah. He's out there in front saying, come on, this is the guy coming.
Okay.
And our role is to proclaim the coming of the King of Kings. And he's not going to be the babe in the manger this time. He's going to be the reigning king, and every knee will bow because they'll see him and they'll go, oh my goodness, he is Lord.
Yes. Okay. One thing so you were saved at 10, and for me at 10 to have a clarity to understand God or even proclaim him as, my king or anything like that, I feel like I wouldn't have lived enough life or suffered enough or whatever to fully need him. And so I'm wondering, where was the time you felt like you needed God the most?
Well, I think at any time in our life we probably can say, have we suffered enough to say we know we need him? It's relevant at our age and what we're dealing with. I wasn't the best student in school as far as paying attention and being so.
You're preaching the choir.
So I knew I needed him when I kept getting in trouble in class for messing around. That's when I was like, oh man, I'm gonna get in trouble again. Oh, I'm in the principal's office again. And I knew I had this relationship with God, but I also knew, man, I want this. I want to do this. And it just, my impulse was just so fleshly. And we're always moving into the direction of learning more and more about who we are and how sinful we are and how much we need Jesus. And at 10 years old, I wasn't doing crazy wild things, but 10 years old, I wasn't doing the things that I should be doing as a 10-year-old in class.
Yeah. Okay. I was in the office so much. I was in the principal's office so much. She would have me first name, middle name, last name. She would already have like the forms filled out. She would pre-fill out the forms throughout the year.
Knowing he's going to be here.
They'd be like over under 4 times in the office. And she was like, I love him so much. Like, I'd adopt him, but he just
They didn't have a stack of work for you to do, or he's going to be coming sitting in here waiting for the principal.
I
we
would
should
sit
give
in
him
there.
some work.
I had like my own chair, and I would go hang out in there, and I had good relations with her. And she'd be like, what did this teacher do? And it was always the other teacher. And I found out through all these stories where I'm constantly getting in trouble, I'm the common denominator. And so that's why I had such a hard time with accountability. So, like, it takes a lot for me. I feel like to be Christian, you got to be like, listen, I messed up. I'm falling short again and again and again. And there's a certain level of accountability that you have to have.
No, that is absolutely true. If we think that we've got it, we're already there.
Yeah.
If we say we have no sin, we lie and we don't have fellowship with the Father. But if we are willing to confess our sins, he's faithful and just to forgive us of them. And we are far from being like Jesus. We are far from being like Jesus. And he's going to show us, if we're willing to see every day how much we need him and how sinful we are. And we will be grateful every time we recognize that my sin has been covered by Jesus.
Yeah.
Oh, thank God. I want to be more like him.
Okay. And so from 10 years old, let's say take it to 18, what did your life look like? What were you doing?
Well, I still cared for people, still got in a lot of trouble, still was walking with God, praying, reading his word, sharing with friends. There was a year in high school, and I think it was in my 11th grade year, that I kind of just fell back. That's when I first smoked weed, and I think that for that year I kind of was just in that vein. And then I realized, what am I doing? This is, and then for my senior year, this is when I kind of stopped. But I always knew. In fact, I was the guy who people came to when they had troubles and things were going on in their families and stuff. In fact, I was a football player, and one of the things
what position?
I played running back.
Running back.
Yeah.
Were you fast?
Yeah, I was pretty fast. I
Okay.
was one of the fastest guys on the team.
Dang.
But one of the things that I would do is a football stadium was like my office. I'd sit in the stadium and people would come and talk about things that they needed to talk about.
They would talk with you.
Yeah.
So you were the jock. Were you kind of more jockey? Is that?
No, I was always the defender of the weak. I was the guy who beat up the bullies for the guys who the bullies were beating up.
Did that actually happen where you'd get in a fight?
Oh yeah, I have 4 brothers under me, and so I was the guy who fought.
So
all the time.
You'd be handing out the whoopings.
Yes,
Yeah,
and I learned very quickly that you could eliminate a fight very quickly. That if somebody is wanting to challenge you, and you understand, you do, it's the hit right now. The yes is right in your face,
Yeah.
and then usually is over that quickly. But I knew that I was a protector of my family, my younger kids, my younger siblings, and so that was my role. But I didn't want to fight. I wanted to care for people. I only fought when it was absolutely positively necessary, that it was defending someone. So that very nature of defending people was just part of who I.
So I always had that like kind of fighting spirit. I would get in a lot of fights in like middle school, and then I went through life and I kind of lost my touch for a little bit. Like I fell out of who I was, and I noticed that I was like shrinking, and everybody else was growing, and
made you not want to fight so much.
Yeah, made me not want to fight so much. I was like kind of a bigger kid, and then just like shrunk down. I just stopped growing, and I figured out that I had a growth hormone deficiency, and so I had to do a shot every single day for like 5 years to grow, just to grow. And then I started, getting some confidence back, and I had this realization. I was like, people would like mess with me, and they'd like pick on me, and everybody wants to pick on you when you're like the small one that doesn't want to fight. But even if I was the small one who did want to fight, they wouldn't mess with me, you know? And so I was like, at a certain point, I was saying to myself, I would rather fight and lose than not fight at all and let that moment.
That was my mentality.
And some would say like, oh, that's like, but if somebody's like challenging you and aggressive towards you and threatening you, I think it's like you got to stand up for yourself. One, for your own just like personal well-being. I remember there was a time, I've told it on the podcast before, but I'll tell it to you again. When I was younger, it was like my freshman year, I was the height of just not feeling myself, you know? I didn't feel like the little kid, you know, that would go up and walk up to everybody. I wasn't courageous or bold or anything. And we had this one kid, he was way bigger than all of us, you know. He was probably 200 pounds, varsity wrestler type of kid. And he would hang out with us, but kind of, he was like the group bully. And we would go to school and we'd hang out with him. And he started doing this thing where he would wrestle you to the floor and then drag you through the stalls. And he called it mopping. He would be like, oh, it's mop day. And it was like on Wednesday, you know, floors need to be clean. And so he would pick some, you know, kid. He was probably 2-3 years older than us. He'd pick some kid who was freshman. And it didn't start with me. It started with one of my friends. And then the weeks would go by, and it was finally my turn. And I felt like I would just sit and watch, you know, each person get eliminated, and it finally got to me. And I'm sitting there, he comes up to me, and he tries to wrestle me, and I just kind of lay down and take it, you know? And he drags me through the stalls, and, like, I get up, and I'm like, all right, guys, like, let's go on with our day. And I went on with my day. Later in the day, I see that my friend posted on his story, filmed the whole thing, posted on his story. And the school somehow found it. I got turned in. And I was like, damn it, I'm going to be in trouble when I get home, you know? Because I thought I did something wrong. Yeah. And I come in, and I go to talk to my parents, and all the other times they've been, you know, they've been mad at me, but never disappointed. And I'm like, Mom, like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. And I'd go to my mom first because she was less, like, strict. Yeah. And she's like, I'm not even going to talk to you. You need to talk to your dad. And so I go, I walk into the garage. I look at him, and he's just kind of shaking his head. And he says to me, you know, I don't care if the kid's 300 pounds. I don't care if he's 6'5". I don't care if he's a professional fighter. I don't care if you break your arm. I don't care. Whatever it takes, you should fight for yourself and your confidence and who you are, because somewhere along the line you lost who you were. You used to be the kid that would stand up for yourself, and now you just take it. And at that moment, this quote, it's such a great quote. A coward dies 1,000 deaths.
Oh, yeah.
And so I would sit there and I'd kill myself over, like, should I do this or should I do that, or I did this wrong or I did that wrong. But if I have the boldness to walk through life as a lion, yes, you know, and attack it the way that I'm made to be, you know, I felt like I was shrinking to be somebody else. Yeah. And somebody else's version of me, and somebody else, like, what they wanted of me. I'm
so glad your dad said that. What a great thing a dad to say to his son. That's a key learning moment. The scripture says that the righteous walk as bold as lions. Yes. So if we do things that are right, that are courageous, where we have real purpose as a young man, that we do walk boldly because we walk in righteousness. We know it's the right thing. And it gives us purpose.
Towards the end, like, of the whole conflict, you know, I had the police showing up at my door. They were asking, like, hey, we can press charges on this. This is, like, I think it's called assault or whatever. Yeah. And I fought for the kid. You know, this kid, and I don't regret it because it made me who I am today. But, I mean, he deserved to be punished and stuff. And I said, like, you know what? I don't want him to, you know, potentially be in court over this and lose money, because I saw him as, like, a friend, and I also didn't want it to get worse. Yeah. And so it still took some time for me to change, but, like, looking back on that story, it's all the motivation to walk through life bold as a lion.
Very good. Very good.
Did you have a moment like that where you felt like you lost yourself and you had to reawaken?
I mean, I was pretty like a situation would have happened like that. He would have said he wanted to do it. I would have just clocked him right there, and we would have gone to.
So you're a shoot first, ask questions later type of guy.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of a situation. I mean, I know that I've in many cases where I've gone to fight, there are times where I'm afraid. I remember one time there was a young man. I went to a Christian school and then I had to go. I left that school, probably got kicked out of it. But I went to the.
You know why you got kicked out.
And then because I didn't want to go anymore, and then my parents decided, well, if you're not going to do it, I guess we'll kick you out.
Yeah.
But I was in, I think it was the 8th grade, and there was this one guy who when I just kind of made friends with, but he was always just a bully, and he was always picking on me like he was. Like he could beat me up and everything like that, and I'm just like, dude, like I would destroy you, and I just didn't pay attention.
He was your friend, but he would poke at you.
But he'd poke at me, and it was just like, because he's just trying to get attention and be all this tough guy, and I just come to the school, and I'm not trying to create any problems, but we were in PE one time, and we were sitting on the steps, and it's an asphalt kind of a setting, and there was this little pebbles, and I was just start throwing at him, and they were kind of annoying him, and he says, man, you better stop that. If you don't stop that, I'll come up there and kick your ass. And I'm like, you know what? This would be kind of the moment. Let's go there. And so I kept throwing at him, and then he got up, and we squared up, and he got the first hit because he
You're
was
like, come get you some.
he was left-handed, and I wasn't prepared for his left hand.
He pulled out southpaw.
Yeah, but then after he hit me right there, I was like, oh, you should not have done that.
Yeah.
And so I just wrapped him up and just slammed him to the ground and had him in a headlock, and I was just pounding.
Okay.
And he was one of those kids that the PE teacher was kind of like, oh, finally somebody's putting him in his place. And so the PE teacher, I could see him on the corner of my eye, and I'm like, okay, it would have been about time for you to stop this. And he is just like taking his time to getting there.
Yeah.
And finally he comes and he breaks it up. And we break up, and he says, come on, dude, come on. What are you? And he's like, he wants to go fight again. And then the PE teacher says, he was just kicking your ass. You want me to let him back at you?
Yeah.
And then he slides, he goes back down. And then this, at the end of the school, he lived on the other side of the town. I lived closer to the school, but he didn't take the bus. And he brought his other friend, another big guy, and he was following me home. And I knew that they were behind me, and I was walking, and I was like, okay, this other friend's a big guy, and the two of them, I'm kind of giving my strategy, and my house is like the next street over and down, and I thought, if I'm going to fight them, I can't fight them on my street because my mom is going to be freaking out, so I better do it now.
How old were you?
I was in the 8th grade.
Okay.
So I crossed the street
8th grade.
over, and I went back to him, and I told him his name was Jeffrey. Earl is his name, Earl Jeffrey. Hope he doesn't see this and have scary memories about it. But
he's probably cutting the crust off his PB&J.
So with Juan, his friend, I said, so you have to bring Juan, your backup, to try to finish this, huh? I said, okay, let's go, Juan. Juan, you want to try to do this? And then Juan just kind of looked at me with big eyes and just like, no, I know. And I go, then you guys have a long walk home. And I just left, and they walked home.
Long walk. Think about it.
But that was kind of like, being the oldest, and my dad kind of, put the responsibility on me to care for my younger siblings.
Yeah.
And so that was my perspective. And I guess as a result of that now, I want to instill courage in young men.
Yeah.
That matters, that's connected to something that matters.
It pisses me off because I see young men now, and they're just laying down.
Oh, yeah.
Like far too much. I want to hear. I would be happy if I saw two people outside, beating the shit out of each other, because like you guys are interacting, outside time. You're probably, if you got your shoes off, you're grounding. You know, it's healthy.
Well, we got the false kind of interaction. Get something on the screen, beating up somebody on there. That's where we kind of.
It's dehumanizing. Yes.
It's not good.
I used to. I feel like I had a lot of friends that were like that. I had a ton of friends in high school, and we were all just kids, but I feel like they'd keep me around just to like you said, say oh, kind of punk you and just like push you around to like get
I just never liked that. I never liked being mean to people. I don't even joke hard to people. I'm just not that kind of guy. And I to me, it all has value.
No, I would put it out, but then I like they would put
Yeah.
it back out at me, and I couldn't take it. But also, like, at a certain point, I was like, what are we all doing? Like, I some of the worst stuff I've ever heard were like from people I call my friends. All the fights I've been in
Yeah.
were from people
Yeah.
that I called my friends, and so it's like,
Sometimes your friends make you tough. They give you thick skin.
yes, exactly. But these friends, I would see them, and they'd be so disgenuine, like, and I would notice that people like me, they would hate, like, people that didn't wear the same clothes as them, people that didn't look the same way, people who didn't think the same way, and they would, like, set up, like, all these imaginary obstacles for me to jump through and be, like, the person that they want, and I would sit there and I would try to, pander to, like, this idea of what they thought I would be. And, soon enough, like, I'm sitting there, I'm going out, I'm drinking, I'm smoking cigarettes, I'm living my life in such a way that it was, like, for other people, because I was such a coward. And so, like, what I'm saying is I would sit there and be like, bro, I wish I had their life. I wish I didn't have to pander to other people. I wish I didn't. And, getting my ass whooped and, fighting all the time and all that suffering and stuff made me who I am today. Good question I could ask is, how should I look at pain and suffering? Like, what should be my approach when I see, like, an obstacle?
Well,
like
let
that?
me ask you this question, just kind of to get to that. As you think about being a man, what do you think a man is?
I was gonna ask you that one.
I know you were, but
Dang it.
I this is a great time for me to ask you that,
What do I
because
think a
I
man is?
definitely have something I want to help you to maybe embrace to answer that question of suffering.
Yeah. So I think being a man is, well, I'm not gonna try to answer it the way that you would want me to hear it. I'm gonna answer it the way that I feel.
Yeah, that's exactly what I want. What
Okay.
you're telling somebody this is what a man is.
I feel like a man is when you're not waiting on another person for, like, your check or your food, and, like, you can go out there, and it's like, I feel like a man is somebody who takes matters into their own hands. They got, like, a Saturday off, and they're disgruntled with, like, let's say, like, this person at work's doing this, or, like, they are able to change their scenario and, like, actually improve their life. I think if I'm victim to my phone and, like, what everybody else thinks and all that stuff, I wasn't a man. And I think that to be a man, you also have to be able to have responsibilities and care for other things besides yourself. I also think that to be a man, it's got to be somewhat of an age thing, because I feel when your frontal lobe is, like, fully developed and you're able to make decisions and comprehend, like, oh, this person lives their life, and also being able to say sorry was, like, one of the most manly things for me. Like, I would see, like, some dude that wasn't just a complete asshole. He was able to admit when he was wrong and change.
So
That was a roundabout way to answer your question.
Well, I will boil it down. When my kids were, I have two sons, and I did rites of passages with them as they grew up throughout their life from the time they were 15.
What is rites of passages?
That there is a stage in their life where they move from one stage to another stage, and it's a passage that says, that recognizes you have made a transformation, and I've done that for them when they're 5 years old, 10 years old, 13 years old, 16 and 18. And there are significant purposes and meaning at each of those stages. And I read a book by an author, Robert Lewis, who had a great definition of what a man is and what a man does, that I've applied that with them and with young men, ever since. And he has 5 things that, us who are believers, that we can identify and be able to recognize a man. So when my sons were 5 years old, and I sat them and explained to them, you're on your way to becoming a man. And to becoming a man, here are the things that you need to recognize so that you see here's what a man does. The first thing that a man does is he takes responsibility. Whatever is within his influence that he is responsible for, he takes it. He doesn't rescind, pass it off. He takes responsibility. And so when you see a man, you'll see that he in just innately, naturally will take responsibility. And maybe not natural, but he'll make sure he takes responsibility. The second thing is that he'll resist passivity. And passivity is passing by something that you know that needs to be done. If you see someone who's hurting, you see someone who's weak, as a young man, you see that garbage needs to go out and you just kind of pass by it and don't take it out. That's passivity. Men resist that urge to be passive because passive just says, let's just sit here and not really make anything happen. And that passivity destroys many things in your life. So the third thing is that he leads courageously. And it's important to think about it because God created man to lead. And leading is not something that naturally happens. Leading requires courage because if you're leading, who are you following? Who's going first? You are. And to do that, it's likely going to be a little unnerving because you're going into territories that somebody else has not been. So leading requires courage. So you have to lead courageously. And the fourth thing is that you have to accept the greater reward. What boys will want is they want things right here, right now. And they pay the least amount for something very immediate, and it doesn't last. But what a real man will see the future, and he will say, I need to pay the price for this, do this longer and harder because I see the greater reward lays out there. So they stay diligent doing the hard work towards the greater future that they are, because a real man has a vision and he looks towards a vision. So accepting the greater reward requires having some vision. And then the fifth thing, which I think underlines it all, is that a real man has a God to serve, and he serves the living God. And when he serves the living God, he has a reason and a purpose to be responsible, to reject passivity, to lead courageously, and to accept a greater reward. And all of those things you just mentioned really kind of wrap into that.
Yeah, they're under one of those categories. Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yes.
I guess when you ask me, like, what is a man, I feel like I've always kind of just been like, oh, it's just an age thing, and then I tried to give you a little bit better of a definition, but I've never really had it spelled out like that.
Well, you can take that definition now, and that's at 5 years old when I tell my son, you're becoming a man, and here's what a man does. And I identified, you're taking responsibility. I saw you cleaned your room up when your mom told you. That's your responsibility. You did a great job. You helped take out the trash. When you saw the trash, you picked it up and you saw some things. That's resisting passivity. You could have gone outside and just played. That's good. And I saw how you stood up for your sister. That was courageous. You're leading courageously. That's important for you to do. And when you were told not to have that cookie and you had to wait for dinner, you waited for dinner because a greater reward is eating healthy food so you can be healthy in life. And so those things you can work with men all the way. Any young man you can say, hey, you want to be you're not taking responsibility, dude. A real man takes responsibility. Come on, man, get some courage. Lead. You need to be a leader out there.
Yeah, I guess I've always been like, oh, real men take dumps in the morning. and
I would have kids tell me what their definition, and one of the kids would tell me, oh, a real man eats meat, red meat. I was like, okay.
Real man eats red meat. Yeah, no. Smokes Marlboro cigarettes.
So look, can I wrap it up? And what you were saying is why about suffering?
Yeah.
Well, when you have those things understood, you know that suffering is naturally a part of that. Yeah. And you suffer for a purpose. All of those purposes. I'm gonna suffer and be responsible because there's a reason for me to do that.
Okay, I got a new definition for what a man is. Mine. I'm not gonna take your 5-part thing. I think that's beautiful, or the one that you got from the book. I think it is to be able to suffer purposely for others or for a God or whatever, and to do what's right now. I feel like at the times I feel most manly is like when, despite how I feel, I guess the times I feel most anything is when despite how I should be doing it, I do the right thing.
You do what's right.
Yes.
You're righteous and bold.
there's a good quote: faking courage when you don't have any is courage. Faking strength when you don't have any is strength. Faking clarity.
I might use a different word. I would say mustering, because
Mustering.
that's exactly what you're
Yeah.
doing. When you don't have it, you're mustering it up.
Okay. So mustering is like summoning it from like out of nowhere, kind of?
Yes.
Okay. So I think a lot of men aren't mustering anything, They're not playing, like, let's just say like basketball. You play basketball?
No, I play football, hockey, track.
Okay, I feel like I muster up, like, I'm mustering when I'm playing basketball because I got this one friend who's insane at cardio. Like, he can run miles and miles, and we'll be playing basketball, and he just runs me like a dog. And then I'm sitting up, like they're just panting, and I have to muster up a bunch of strength because I've hit my limit. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the most important part is a lot of these people have up all of these walls, like, oh, I'm full on food, I haven't had to exercise today. I have this comfortable house and this comfortable car that I go in, and all these walls, up. And so when you go and talk to people at a grocery market or whatever, you get this very tailored, perfect version of them. And so I like working out with my friends. I like doing tedious things with my friends and hard things with my friends, because when you go on a 6-mile long hike and you're running out of water and stuff, that's where you see your friends. And the people that flip out and say a bunch of hurtful stuff are the ones that aren't that's their true self. And so a lot of people think that they're strong and think that they're this type of person or that type of person, but they haven't been exhausted in a very long time.
Yeah, I think it's an important thing for young men to get to their limits.
Yes.
Do whatever you can in life to get to your limits.
And test them and figure out where that limit is.
Yes.
Because when you have kids, a lot of men are like, I'm going to have kids and start a family. When you have kids and you're sitting there and you haven't slept in 4 days, I know that parenting's hard. I'm an uncle, but I talk to my sister about it all the time. That's where it's like, all right, this is my limit. I should be failing. And that's why people say, like, oh, dads are obviously men, because they are able to do what's right now despite everything.
Well, that's one of the important things of why having children, too, is because it helps men recognize the higher calling, higher responsibility. And if they're being men, they see, I have to do this. This is what I have to do.
Yeah.
They are the foundation, like I said before. They are the foundation of everything, because God created them first. And then they weave together the family. They put together, and the family is the structure that keeps the society strong. Yeah. So there's a real work and there's a real calling for men. And I do appreciate you having the passion and the desire to wanting to speak up, to wanting to get into spaces where your voice is heard. And I just, I just encourage you to make that voice be heard for a meaning, for something that brings life to people.
Oh, dude. I'm trying to step up where, like, even though I had a dad, I feel like I still needed outside people who were also men to be able to say, like, all right, like.
That's a part of the community. It's a part of the tribe of men.
It's not even like, some people are missing just the dad part, and then also don't have the community, so they're ultimately just making up their own rules.
Well, don't you see that is validation when you see not just one, but you see 2, 3, 4, 5 men doing the things that men are required to do, but they're doing it at different stratospheres of different places that they fit. That is, your dad's a contractor, but that may be different than someone who's an accountant, but you still see those elements of being a man that exist. So at different states, you can translate that to where you might be as a man.
Yeah. So you have, like, had the experience of having a father in your life, and, like, having a family be, like, laid out like how it is. And I've noticed that with some of my other black friends, they have, like, no father in their life. And so I was wondering, like, why do you think that there is such a dadlessness problem inside of the black community? I haven't, like.
You want to start now having that conversation?
I'm sorry. it's a tough question, but I'm just
No,
wondering.
I mean there's a definitive answer. Our sin is in our world and in our society, and the enemy wants to destroy families, and especially families that would proclaim God,
Yeah.
or that would demonstrate his reign and authority. And there was a misunderstanding as to who we should trust.
Yeah.
Someone came in and told black families that they should trust the government.
Yeah.
And when that happened, and the government began to provide resources to the black community, I believe that was a very damaging thing, because they would provide more resources if a black woman had a child but no father was in the home.
So I'm unsure geographically, like, where is this in the States?
This was all over. This was all over the United States.
All over the United States.
When I grew up, I had a family member who had lots of kids, and the more kids she had, she got more money, and she would pound her kids off to someone else so she can do the things that she wanted. But as long as she didn't have a husband in the house. My mother had that situation. She went when we were young. We weren't a wealthy family, and she had to go get food stamps or do something. And the lady at the thing said, "Well, is your husband in the house?" She goes, "Yeah." "Well, if he's not there, I can give you more money."
So it would be even encouraged. Do you think that, like, families would stay together and they'd fake, like, a divorce or something?
Well, some women would just get pregnant to have a kid and didn't necessarily need the dad.
And get a check. Yeah. I didn't know that.
Yeah. It's
What are the long-term effects of having?
well, we see you become dependent, and you have a lifestyle that then is dependent upon this level of sustenance, instead of saying, I'm going to work to care for myself. We have a whole society. It's not just a black society. We have people in all who are dependent upon somebody else to take care of them, rather than being the responsible men. And we've got a lot of young, the whole epidemic of men in the parents' basement is that idea of, get out there and do something.
Dude, it's a problem in both communities.
Mm-hmm.
I think the divide of saying, like, oh, somebody's like this way, or like is grown up with that. I think that it's important that we all understand we have different cultures and stuff, and like, but also we're all American. And that's been something that has been so nice to me when I was younger. I feel like there was this big overarching, we're all American, we're all in it, we're all, trying to get through it. And so now it's like, oh, this person's this community's dealing with this, mine isn't. Mine isn't dealing with that. Should young men focus on themselves right now?
What do you mean, focus on themselves?
Like, if you were to speak to me at 19, should I focus on myself?
Well, I would say yes in this sense. What you should focus on is where you are and what work God has placed you, why God has placed you, and what work He's placed you to do at that time. And like I said, one of the key things is learn to cultivate the area that you're at. If you're in school, you're there to work on being in school and doing what is necessary and diligent for being in school. If you're working, you're taking on a job, you should cultivate being one of the greatest workers and greatest team players on the staff. You work on yourself by accomplishing and doing the best where you are when you're there at the time, wherever God has placed you.
Okay. And like, what would you say to that young man who maybe spends a little bit too much time on his phone, maybe doesn't have the car he wants or the bed he wants, or doesn't ask the girl out, and like has racked up all these losses? Like, the type of man who is lost but knows he wants success at one point. Because I see a lot of these young men saying, like, oh, I'm going to get rich one day.
Well, it's the same five things that I mentioned to you about what a real man does. It's a diligence factor. You just have to be diligent at that, being responsible, resisting passivity, leading courageously, accepting the greater reward, realizing that you have a God to serve. And if you're paying attention, things get a little clearer wherever you're at, and whatever you end up doing. You're like, well, is this being responsible? Is this what God would want of me?
Yes.
It makes it very clean.
All right. And then this is my final thing. Right now in your life, you've been through a lot of chapters. It's a big, long book. What would the title of this chapter be?
This chapter?
Yeah.
Love Until You Die.
Love Until You Die? I think mine would be like a violent struggle or something like that. Making my way to the
A
top.
love to the death.
Love to the death?
Yeah. Or die as evidence of love.
All right. I appreciate you. Everything you've done. Love what you're doing.
Right on, my man.
Everybody go check out his podcast. This has been Op Talks. Op Talks.
Op Talks.